Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I am, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by my buddy Byron.
Back again at the headquarters of wrestling podcasting to carry on with another show. This show is very in-depth. We've been working on it for 12 hours.
That's what it feels like, doesn't it? Maybe someday we will share the tale of the show that just didn't seem to want to freaking happen. And this one just really didn't seem like it. And, of course, if we did ever tell tale, it would be so profanity-filled, it could only be found in one place. That is patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Oh, the stories that we could tell, right, Byron?
The finest in obscenities in one place. Yes. Don't ever do Windows updates. They suck. Also, all software sucks. We're recording our next show on a reel-to-reel.
Exactly.
And we won't ever do that again.
Yeah, man. But like I said, please check us out over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. You can subscribe to us there. You can become a supporter on the book as well. Just go to our page right there on the book, and right at the top there, you'll see where it says become a supporter. Click, and you can become a supporter. Get the show early, extra stuff, get some exclusive stuff. I'm going to throw a couple more things up this week as well on both, so check them out for sure. And, you know, hey, like I said, we always appreciate all the support, man. It's the least, you know, I mean, we love it, man. We love it reaching out to those guys who are on there and following along us, whatever. So anyway, check us out on book, support us there, patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Before we get started talking about the present and the future, I do want to talk about the past.
Our time machine is set to 20 years ago of the day we record this.
That's correct. We are recording this on the 23rd. So, of course, on the 23rd, 20 years ago to the day, WWE purchases WCW. Man, 20 years ago, Myron. That is freaking crazy.
I can't believe it was actually 20 years ago, Nick. That's insane, man. I watched it on television. I've heard all the stories. I've listened to every podcast I could hear about it. Whoa. Probably the biggest acquisition, one of the biggest changes in wrestling ever, probably the most important change in wrestling ever, because it affected the destiny of an entire business.
It did. And here's the crazy thing. Now, I know everybody's going to go like, oh, yeah, but it was dollars from 20 years ago, so times are different. WWE stole. Let's be blunt. They stole WCW. They got it for $4.2 million total. It was like $2.5 million for trademarks and logos or whatever. $1.7 for the library. Think about what I just said, folks. $1.7 million. That's all they paid for the library, the entire library of content from WCW. But back then, everybody was like, what are they going to do with that?
Let's see how much that is worth. We calculate for inflation. We work in this. Well, it's like $1 million and $1.5 million. So 1.7. Yeah, this didn't age well, folks. We're looking at maybe the inflation has gotten it up to around 2.5, not quite even 3 million just for the content that they've used to feed their network, which it doesn't matter what they paid for it because they're using it they're renting it out now. They're not even selling it. They're renting it out now for $1 billion for 5 years, $200 million each.
Listen, and I'm fully aware there's a whole bunch of other content on there. We're going to actually, believe it or not, discuss some of that later in the show. But I was just like, dude, are you really kidding me? $4.2 million for an entire, basically, this WCW. And everybody goes, well, what did you really get? Well, here's the thing. Fusion Media, Brian Badal led group, Eric Bischoff obviously was involved with them as well. They had a deal in place to buy WCW for $75 million.
$75 million.
$75 million. The deal completely falls through because, Time Warner says, oh, well, there's no TV deal, so you're not going to be on our TV. No, like, well, now the company's essentially worthless without television, right?
Yeah. In 2000, yes. 2001, sorry. It's what's the point? I mean, what are you going to put it on? If you don't have television, Even if you have a huge library, there's no place to put it.
Literally, you would have been like sending out like DVDs. You'd have been selling DVDs as that's what the library's worth at that point.
2001, I still had a VHS record. I used it more than I did the DVD player.
Yeah, no, I can see that, but that's what I'm saying. There's really not a whole lot that was, used. And when you really, in hindsight, think about it, WCW literally, because Bischoff says all the time, Time Warner is what killed WCW. And I think the real, like, look, they were cutting them, but the nail in the coffin is literally this. Yeah. Like, you're not going to be on TV, so then essentially they're like, well, then nobody's buying this company without TV.
No.
And
why would you want to buy something you had no outlet to distribute?
Absolutely. And so, of course, then, like I said, nobody's interested. It goes away. Vince basically just, gives them a bucket of bolts and, whatever and he's got WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the question that kind of led me down this road, the whole topic of it. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, with where we are in wrestling right now, how different would wrestling be if the Fusion Media deal had gone through? Like they let them stay on TNT. They're like, oh, absolutely. They want it out of the wrestling business. We get it. That's what you always hear. But had they let them stay on TNT, let them stay on TBS for Thunder, whatever. Where have you ever thought about that? Where would we be now if that actually went down?
That's a really hard thing to do, because what's to say it wouldn't fail later?
Absolutely.
This is in the middle of the Monday Night Wars. Okay. They could have lost the war and then eventually been pushed out. We could be dealing with a Monday Night War that's still going. Okay. We could be dealing with two great competitive programs at the same time. Nowadays, I can watch them at the same time on the same screen. How insane is that compared to flipping back on my 19-inch tube television that I carried around from college and was still watching it? No, take it back. 2001, I had a different TV. But folks, this is nuts. This is absolutely nuts. The fact that there was a chance WCW could still be around. All of that stuff, all the tradition. Well, does Tony Khan play? I mean, is Sting still working for Fusion? Does Sting go to AEW?
Listen, yeah, we've asked those questions, and we want everybody to, and we're going to give everybody a chance to actually answer these. Like, hey, I mean, is WWE still the king of the mountain? Are they still? Did they grow to the point? Because think about it. At this point, they were still private.
Yes.
Do they grow to be the publicly traded media conglomerate that they are?
Or did they just wither on the vine because they put out such raunchy content nobody wants to advertise on it?
Do they not get to be safe? Do they not get to be, because WCW starts pushing the envelope, on there? Because now, WCW had to clean up their act because they were owned by Time Warner.
Exactly.
So do they not have to clean up if they go Fusion and they get to push the envelope a little bit, which they probably still would have because they were on the same network. But if they get to push it a little edgy, do they take off and do they conquer WWE?
I mean, they could have got another TV deal in the future if they were successful. So it's so many possibilities. This is like a what if novel. And because you got to think of it this way. Now, if we jump so far ahead, let's hypothetically say WCW survives. They're on TNT. Guess what's not on TNT? AEW. Wow.
Actually, let me ask you this. If WCW is around, does AEW even exist?
I don't think there would be a need for AEW. I don't think there would be a Ring of Honor. I don't think there would be an MLW. I know there probably wouldn't be an NWA. And as far as Impact, there would have been no disgruntled employees to go form Impact.
Here's the irony. I think there's an Impact because I think there was already, it was starting to hit, ECW probably folded because it was folding anyway. I don't think there's an AEW because there's just not enough talent out there to be the roster.
No.
Because, 90-something wrestlers are going to be tangled up in WCW.
Yeah, they're doing 3 shows a week plus. Oh, wow. It kind of sounds like what's going on right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know that there's enough talent out there.
There wasn't enough steroids and cocaine in the world to put 2 rosters that big together.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy to fathom, like, the what ifs. So what do you think? Let us know at Tapped Out Pod. comment below right here on the book if you're watching the video. And, of course, you can always email us at tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. What if WCW, the Fusion Media deal, goes through, they stay on TNT, where are we at now? What do you think would be different? So, anyway, let's push along, man. Before we get, I love it. We could go in this time machines and change everything, but we just can't. So
that's fantasy booking.
That's fantasy booking, absolutely. And guess what, folks? It's not what we do. But what we do here is we also don't recap pay-per-views like all the way through. We're not a recap show, but we do want to talk a little bit about FastLane and what the ramifications were heading down the road to WrestleMania, of course, because we kind of do that every week now. What's the changes for WrestleMania? Jeez, don't get me started, man.
We are speeding into WrestleMania, and I don't have a damn clue about half of the content on it. But I know by the time WrestleMania comes, I'll be totally involved in all of it. I know. I mean, at least 75%. Think about it, guys.
Maybe, hopefully. Because let's be blunt, this pay-per-view, I honestly wish this pay-per-view went away. We say this every single year.
Yes.
Just give me 3 more weeks of build to WrestleMania I don't even know that I like, because remember the day when it was like Rumble, Mania. Like there was nothing in between. Give me that. Because at that point we're talking 10 weeks maybe.
Of build
Between Rumble. I'll take that over the pay-per-view, but I understand they need a pay-per-view in the middle. So if you want to give me elimination chamber, FastLane, just get rid of it. Because this is what you typically get. This pay-per-view wasn't that good to begin with.
Yeah, and the things I liked about it got messed up. Like I was really enjoying that Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan match until all those people jumped in and started interfering, from the Uso to the referee, Edge. It was a great storytelling match where they worked body parts and it looked good, and then all of a sudden it's like a schmoz and there's people everywhere, and I still don't have a clue what happened.
It's just chaos, man. I mean, it is what it is. What does this mean for Mania now with everything going on? Well, let's just start and let's backpedal here and get a little bit of clarity here. First and foremost, I mean, let's look at the card that we've kind of been given up to this point, and we'll kind of fill in the gaps here. Obviously, night 1, Saturday, April 10th. Drew McIntyre is going to wrestle Bobby Lashley for the WWE title. Again, the story's a little weak going into there, but so be it. Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks. We got the typical. They teamed them up so they could have a little friction between them and
back and forth. Build smack. Yeah, we knew that was coming.
Absolutely. Bad Bunny versus the Miz is official, and I ain't mad. I think we thought we should get the tag team match, right?
Yeah, I thought it would be a tag team match because it usually makes it easier for a guy to work when he's got a partner like Damian Priest.
Now, let me ask you this: do you think Bad Bunny's putting in enough work at the PC? Because let's be honest, dude, he's been there every week.
No, honestly, I don't care. I mean, if he's putting in the work, they're still going to make it work. Okay, it's not going to botch. It's going to be good. I don't have bad feelings about it. So I'm thinking we're going to get a solid match with a lot of interference, and Miz is going to put him over really well because Miz is the super safe worker. If I had to work a celebrity match, I would want to work with the Miz. Miz doesn't hurt anybody. Miz never gets hurt. So yeah, let's do that. I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, if Bunny can get 5 moves, we joke about John Cena's 5 moves of doom. If Bunny can give me 5 moves, Miz can put a match together with a good agent, and they'll work around that. A body slam, a hip toss, or a headlock, and maybe the crossbody that he's doing off of the top rope or something.
It worked well for Cena.
Yeah, I mean,
he made a lot of money.
Yeah, one of the funniest lines I ever heard from Bully Ray was he had 5 moves of doom and $10 million in the bank.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So I mean, which is true.
It's a lot more than that, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is true.
And sex with Nikki Bella.
Night 2 of WrestleMania, Edge and Roman. Clearly, look, we're kind of it's obvious that Daniel Bryan's going to get mixed in here, but this is the official as of time of recording. Is what it is. I don't know how we got there, why we got the 3-way with Edge winning and kind of working his way in there. Who knows, man? Maybe this is Daniel Bryan's last year, and he's told them that.
Yeah,
And they're like, hey, let's slide him in. You particularly, we watched SmackDown last week, and you said Edge, you didn't like the way Edge looked, right?
Edge is a little. I think he's got some ring rust, and when you think about it, his match with Randy Orton at that what they call that match, the match where they got on top of stuff. That's what I'm going to call it.
Yeah,
they hit each other with things and got on top of stuff match. He didn't look that good, and that was a cinematic match. Everybody dogged on it, and it was a filmed match. They do a really good job, though. They can cover up any weakness when WWE puts it on there. Like
yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my brother, and he was the one. It wasn't you. I'm sorry. He was the one who's like, Edge just looked old. He looked slow, and I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, again, he's not like a diehard watch every week kind of person. So I was kind of like, okay, this is what the general population thinks.
Yeah.
So and listen, it was so funny to me, and I don't mean to shit on Dave Meltzer, but this was hilarious to me. 2 days before we were heading into FastLane, he's like, there's no interest in putting in, Daniel. It's going to be Roman versus Edge. And then it was like the day after FastLane, it's been over a week, and they had plans for Daniel Bryan to be put in. I'm like, well, freaking 3 days ago, you said there was no desire to put Daniel Bryan into the match.
I'd love to have Dave Meltzer's job.
Sure,
it's like being a weatherman. You can be wrong all the damn time, and there's no consequences.
Plans changed.
Plans changed.
The
weather changed.
Yeah.
There was a variation. The radar didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
But the thing is, we're going through all these matches, Nick, but there's a couple of people I know that are one's not going to be there, Charlotte, who apparently has fallen ill while filming a movie. And what are they going to do with Matt Riddle?
I think we're going to get Sheamus probably versus Matt Riddle. It looks like
a good spot backstage.
That was it. Listen, we have talked about this before. It was so funny when my wife, who doesn't watch every week, just sit there and watch that segment, and she just about Matt Riddle, and she goes, he's pretty good with that gimmick. And I jokingly looked at her and said, it's probably because it's not a gimmick. That's probably Matt Riddle.
Yeah.
It's Matt Riddle turned up.
Yeah. That's all you got to do. That's the whole secret to professional wrestling gimmicks is just turn yourself up. Why do we need another Walking Tall movie, Nick?
I don't know. Because you know what? Because now we're going to be PC and it's going to be a female lead, and so
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a female. It doesn't matter if it's a trained dog. Why do we need to see it again?
Because if there's money to be made or there's a movie to be made, and I think it's a USA Direct or something like that. So I don't even think it's going to a movie. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And not to be so negative, Myron, but let's be honest with you here. I mean, I'm looking at the card here. Ripley, Asuka, Amos, AJ versus New Day, Shane and Braun, Randy and The Fiend. Okay, that one I'm a little excited for. But realistically, I know you're not a fan. But realistically, going into WrestleMania right now, Sasha and Bianca and the Edge Roman / Daniel Bryan match really are pretty much the only two that I'm down with. Like I want to see.
Yeah.
And it's 2 nights. It's 2 nights and there's 2 matches.
Yeah. I'd like to see Ripley and Asuka just out of a curiosity. But there's no build. A lot of the stuff on this card, there's no build. And that is, to me, not good way to start your biggest show of the year. But we've got 3 weeks. I trust them. They've done this before. In about 2.5 weeks, I'll be so psyched it'll be crazy.
Well, we're going to find out, man, because listen, the FastLane card wasn't the only negative news. Obviously, people are a little down on WrestleMania right now. But also, Peacock, FastLane was kind of the first real step into the Peacock era. And Myron, it was a little bit of a rocky start.
Yeah, but I mean, people are going to complain about anything.
I agree.
That's the purpose of the internet.
Now, full disclosure, by the way, I watched FastLane on the network. It was literally my last day on the network, my network subscription. So, like the next day, it fell off. So I just want to go through some of the complaints and some of the things. And look, I'm completely going to agree with a lot of them. So we get accused of being WWE homers a lot. And I'm like, listen, I am not going to, I can excuse some of it, but some of it you can't. The first one I can. The stream thing, everybody complained that apparently like the Peacock stream was 2 minutes behind the network stream or something like that. Well, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be real simple, guys, because next one, it's not going to be like 2 minutes behind it. It's literally going to be the stream in the United States. Like that's how you're going to watch it. It's going to be everybody's going to be on the stream.
Well, were you watching? You watching on 2 different networks?
Yeah.
Just to compare them. Okay, well, you did it, and that's not going to happen again now.
Real quick, I'm not going to get hung up on this. I know one of the big cool things is everybody's like, oh, well, I'll just get a VPN and tell the internet that I'm in the UK and I'll just keep my network. Okay, that's awesome. So you're going to pay more money.
Where's your payment source, though?
You can, I think you can just do like gift cards and stuff still or something. I'm not sure. They'll probably just have to get one from over there or something. Who knows? I don't really know.
It just sounds like too much work.
Yeah, but my big thing is just simply is like, okay, I mean, but it's going to be, you can do the no at whatever, and you would have the Peacock stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I get, now here's the one that I kind of agree with, and I know this is going to be a problem for you, that while the pay-per-view's on, you have to watch the live feed. There's no starting from the beginning, pausing, rewinding, and all that kind of stuff.
What about my bathroom breaks?
Well, you're just going to go to the bathroom while it's running.
Well, the bathroom's upstairs, and so is my liquor, and so are the snacks.
You're going to have to better plan and just, like, bring it all down there, Myron. And just bring a cup, like a 32-ounce.
Well, I can open the back door and go pee in the yard, but I'd like to be civilized.
Yeah, well,
I consider myself a high-end wrestling fan, Nick, and I don't even watch the pay-per-view live. I'll probably watch Mania live because it's Mania, but your average pay-per-view, I let it start for at least a couple hours before I start watching it. Well, and this pay-per-view was completely over before I ever sat down to watch it.
And that's going to be where that's what you're going to be doing. If you want to be able to jump around, fast forward, rewind, you're just going to have to wait till the end. I'm a wholeheartedly agree. This one sucks. I mean, I'm not a fan of that one as well.
But this is the first one, okay?
Listen, I think eventually they'll get it fixed. I literally think they'll get it fixed. They just have to. Look, they're going to listen to the complaints and they're going to fix it. Up until this point, NBC Universal / Peacock TV, they don't do streaming live events, so they've never needed to worry about it.
Yep.
So, I think it's something they're going to learn. And listen, I get it. Everybody's like, well, they should have known and they should have had it from the start. I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah. But they wanted this deal. They wanted it done, and they wanted to make the move. They wanted it before Mania. End of discussion. Let's get to the next one. I know a lot of people are complaining about the content, the old stuff not being moved over. It's going to be probably SummerSlam before. Listen, I here's the thing. It goes back to the vocal minority, right? It's the percentage of people that actually watch the old stuff on a regular basis. It's not as big as a percentage as people think. No. So they'll get it there. Give them time. Does it suck? Yeah. Like, look, I know we watch Mid-South, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? If it's not there, it's not there.
That's
what, but listen, that's also, by the way,
reduced.
That's why they gave you 4 months for $10 because they are fully aware. I mean, you're going to get WrestleMania for $2.50 if you play it right.
Not a bad deal.
It's not a bad deal.
Not a bad deal. And guys, there's too much wrestling on TV right now. Take a break if you're just watching old stuff and go back and watch it later, or maybe try some of the new stuff. There's some stuff out there you'll like. I promise you. NWA, TNA, all that other stuff, man. It's a positive wrestling scene right now.
I agree, but I'm going to sit here and bitch again for a couple more things. The interface isn't the greatest on Peacock. I agree, but is what it is. I think they'll probably.
The WWE interface is always confusing. The network interface was always confusing.
It was funny. I always thought it was the device that you were on. That's what kind of messed it up. The different devices had different interfaces, and so like that kind of threw me sometimes. The ads, whether you do the ad version or the ad-free version, whether you're going to pay. Now, listen, I'm ignoring the 4 months for $10. Let's get outside of that. So $4.99, I'm around off for everything. $5 a month, that gets you the ad version. $9.99, $10, whatever you want to call it, gets you the ad-free version. And by the way, folks, I think you can pay $99.99 and get a whole year of the ad-free version and save you like $20.
Not bad.
So it's not a horrible deal. Now, so far to this point, I've done the ad version. I've watched a couple of the day of documentaries, the 24 documentary. I like the documentaries, by the way. Clearly, honestly, I'm messing on my phone most of the time anyway. So when the ads come on, I'm just doodle around on my phone while the ads, and then when it comes back on, I look back up. So it doesn't affect me, but I get it.
We play the Top Shots thing. We pay attention to our Twitters and Facebooks, all kind of stuff to entertain us these days. If you can't make it through a commercial break in 2021, you're not doing something right.
Yeah, you can get distracted by your phone. It's absolutely the truth. But listen, overall, Mark Henry said it best. I was listening to Busted Open the other day. He's like, listen, NBC Production's going to be they're going to be like hands-on with this. They have a billion reasons to make this thing work, and they're going to listen.
Yep. This is going to have to draw eyes. This is going to have to be a good selling point for Peacock. To have spent what they spent, they're wanting this to just get outside wrestling fans. They're wanting it to appeal to more people, and that would lead to why Hulk Hogan is hosting.
Right. I mean, why do you think Hulk Hogan is hosting on WrestleMania, right? Because they're trying to bridge the gap. Because there was a time and era, they want dads and granddads, to create that. Because here's the problem. We always have these conversations about what, Myron? Well, wrestling was better back in my day. Now, granted, I would argue, and here's the thing. I'm not saying you're wrong. I would tend to agree with you. But here's the but. My argument is, listen, I think that when people get hung up on wrestling was better in my day, there was a great argument Mark Henry made of, no, it's as good in the grand scheme of things. He's like, but your guy's just not there anymore.
No.
And I had that picture up there for a reason. And that reason is Dusty was my guy. Like, I believed back then.
Yep.
I connected with Dusty Rhodes. I will never, and I'm blunt, I would never connect with another wrestler like I did Dusty Rhodes.
Me with Bob Armstrong. It's the first wrestler I picked as a kid. It's the one I followed. It's the one I followed up until his death. I've got autographed pictures of Bob. Everything about Bob I'm interested in. His whole family was great wrestling. And they wrestled in the town that I grew up in. And it's, guys, do you feel the same way about Roman Reigns? He's got a good thing going on right now, but he feels like, no. Chris Jericho. Sort of. But it won't ever be the same again. Nothing is real anymore. Okay? We don't think it's real anymore. We don't think anything in life is real anymore. Everything is constantly busted or proved false. We enjoyed wrestling as children with something new. Okay?
Well,
and it was a special thing.
But, and it's funny because it creates the debate, and I think that's kind of what Peacock's wanting to do. They're wanting to bring back some of those older names, and it was funny because Mark Henry was like, if you thought WWE already brought a lot of the old guys back for, like, reunions and things like that, just hold on. He's like, they're going to be more because NBC wants the guy who has Peacock, who doesn't watch wrestling anymore, by the way, flipping through the menu, and he's going to see a big old thing with WrestleMania with Hulk Hogan on it. Oh, by the way, it's on a service he's paying that he wasn't paying for WWE. He was paying because he wanted the Peacock service, or his wife did, for that matter. And he's going to say,
it's Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. If it's not going to cost him anything, if you hadn't watched wrestling in 20 years, because we're going to reference the WCW, right?
Yeah.
And you were a big Hogan fan. Oh, I was a big fan back in the NW. How many times have we heard that statement? Oh, I watched wrestling back in the day, man, NWO and, all that kind of stuff. Okay, you can watch, if you have Peacock and you were that guy, you can watch WrestleMania for free because it's included with your Peacock package.
Or your kid goes, Dad, who's that wrestling guy? Who's this wrestler? And you think, back in the time before thermoses and racism, he was the greatest wrestler ever.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it creates the conversation of grandpa liked Bruno, dad liked Hogan, kid likes Cena, or, kid likes Roman.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time. Like, we got a buddy of ours, Frank, whose kids watch wrestling.
Yes.
When Roman was the good guy, he loved Roman. Everybody else was like, Roman sucks, blah, blah, blah. But he was like, no, man, he's awesome. He was bad. He loved him. And that's what we don't get, I think, sometimes. So I think it's just it's rose-colored glasses, hindsight's 2020, nostalgia.
I wasn't fat. Well, I was kind of fat, but I could move around. I was a young man. Things were looking up, not looking down. It was a better potential energy. You felt great about things, and you were excited. It
Well,
was a better time in our lives.
Myron, I'm blunt. I have it right here in my notes, and I think it's one of the key things of this whole why wrestling was better back when. We're too smart for our own goods now.
Yeah.
The second you know and you start dissecting and critiquing, it was funny. My wife said something to me that just literally punched me in the gut. She went to, we're going to get into the indie stuff here in a little bit, and I'm not going to hold us up long. But we went to Southern Fried, and I sat next to Larry, and through the whole show, Larry and I kind of back and forth, making comments and stuff, and she was sitting there. We got home, and we're just kind of sitting there talking the next day, and she just looked at me, and she goes, you're not a wrestling fan anymore, right? And I kind of went, what? And she goes, no, seriously, like, you're not a fan anymore. You're a critic. You're an editorial, you do editorials, you do critiques, she was like, I sat there and watched that show, and she goes, and it was funny. You and Larry had moments where you were laughing, and you were, like, oh, that was good. But she was like clapping for the good guys, and she was like, it's what you're supposed to do, just the reaction you get. And she thought about it. Like, we didn't clap. We didn't, it's like, she was like, she goes, 8 years ago when I met you, you were a fan. She goes, you don't watch wrestling like you used to. And she's right. I hate to admit it, but she's right.
For folks not watching on TV, I'm sitting back in my chair shocked because she is right.
Yeah. And it's but and the reason I bring that up is that's why I say wrestling was better when, because we were still fans. And here's the problem. I think most fans, whether they want to believe it or not, fall in that category.
Yes.
They watch as a critic and not as a fan.
Well, I saw something this last week that I tell you what made me believe. And it really made me believe. That was that. Okay? I ain't Mr. Thumbtacks, and I'm definitely not Mr. Deathmatch. But that was a street fight.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I could imagine Dusty coming out in his boots and his jeans and his shirt with the sleeves cut off. And, all those guys pouring out of the locker room to have a street fight. And those two women did a really, really good one. And it scared me, and it made Nick uncomfortable. And
hold on, I don't want to cut you off because I want to tie this into what I just said. That match I texted you while the match was going on. And what the first thing I said was, this is making me uncomfortable.
Yes.
It took me, think about this, folks. I just gave myself chill bumps because I had an epiphany. Do you know why I enjoyed this match so much? Because it made me so uncomfortable. It took me out of the moment of critiquing it and out of, whatever. I literally sat there and enjoyed the match. And hence, I loved it.
Yes. Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker put on a match that will probably go down as the best women's wrestling match. Now, there's one other I'll talk about later, but this was phenomenal, and it was believable. And when wrestling makes me think it's real, even when I know it's not, and you force the suspension of disbelief on me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? When I'm scared, and that might be the appeal of deathmatch wrestling for people. Not my thing, but if they're legitimately thinking that the guy's going to get hurt, maybe it makes it more exciting.
I will tell you the difference, and here's the thing, like, I tell people all the time, like, look, I'm not a deathmatch guy, but I don't crap on people who are deathmatch guys. Like, I get it. Everybody has their thing. When matches build to this, like this one built to the point they were going to have a street fight. When you just have like deathmatch cards and you're just taking two dudes and you're putting them in a deathmatch because it's a deathmatch show. Okay, that doesn't make sense to me, which, again, that's me. It doesn't click with me. These two women had the story that led to the point, and honestly, to me, this match was even further along and intense. It made me feel emotions that even the death match that Mox and Omega, they just didn't get for me.
No, that didn't elicit the same emotion at all for me. This was two people, regardless of their gender, that you felt hated each other, and they went out and proved to you they hated each other. They used everything they possibly could, and this is where we had this discussion long before we recorded the show. A street fight has stuff you can reasonably assume would be in, under, and around a wrestling ring. Chairs, tables, toolboxes. I like toolboxes. Sledgehammer's a stretch, but whatever. Ring steps, turnbuckles, anything you can imagine that you would normally see, to me, make ring bells, make a street fight type match, even if they're not in the street. But if you're going to do something with no rules, where you're not going to bring the whole thing about fans bring the weapons, all that stuff doesn't get me, does not do anything for me. But this struck me as a legitimate grudge match. This was a blow off of a feud. I really, really thought they were going to hurt each other.
Now, Britt looked tremendous at the end of the match. Listen, and Thunder Rosa clearly did her part, carried it all. And we were talking about like in 1 week's time, by the way, I'm going to let you talk about that match. Because in 1 week's time, Thunder Rosa is in 2 of the better women matches. And oh, by the way, this match, the Britt Baker Thunder Rosa match right now clearly is the best women's match I've seen in AEW. Not even close.
Yes. But I saw a barn burner in NWA when Thunder Rosa took on Camille for the #1 contender spot. Man, here's the thing I'll tell you about Thunder Rosa. She is so good. She has that skill that only the best wrestlers have. They make the other person look even better. They put them over, and this was a completely different match. She puts Camille in submission after submission after submission after submission. Best match I've ever seen Camille work. Far out of her normal thing. She usually bulldozes the person and beats them up. She had to wrestle a match. She had to continually get out of submission holds. Best Camille match I've ever seen. Phenomenal match. Completely different than AEW match. I'm going to buy the NWA thing. It's $5 a month. So it puts me at $22, $23 a month for wrestling content these days. Okay, well, I've got all that other shit for the kids and Melissa to watch. I'll enjoy this. I really bought into the NWA show was, you talk about teething. NWA always has sound issues. They'll work that out. They had that worked out by the thing was over. Some of the people the backstage people didn't seem secure in their roles. Sauronara was great. I didn't fast forward at all in this whole show, which is amazing. It's a 2-hour show, no fast forward. It was a wrestling show. It was a legitimate old school wrestling show. There were matches I didn't care for. There were people I didn't care for. There's stuff that kind of, because you gotta fill 2 hours.
But what do we always say, Myron? 2 hours of a show, there's no way you're going to like it beginning to end.
No, 2 hours of a movie, you're not going to like every minute of it, unless it's the Avengers movie. But Josephus they did a lot of tribute stuff for Josephus. They had no crowd in attendance. They had a few people there. I guess they were stagehands or whatever that made up a crowd with noise. They piped the crowd noise in until you thought there was 100 people there. I recommend buying the NWA Back on the Attack pay-per-view and subscribing on Fight. Fight's real convenient for me. I like it. I'm going to use it more often. Well, I couldn't use it more often. I've got a lot of stuff onto there right now. But don't take anything away from the fact that Camille and Thunder Rosa could have main evented that show and still been the best match on that show. Now, Nick Aldis is good, but this was another match where it got you emotionally involved in the outcome.
I think it goes to show Thunder Rosa's versatility, Thunder Rosa's ability to be on both shows, both of those different styles matches, and both of them stood out.
Been
quietly.
on the podcast twice.
Yeah, and she's quietly been an MVP of the last few, the last year for that matter, across the board.
Yes.
Kudos Thunder Rosa, and of course Camille. Great job. I made sure I had to.
Impact.
Yeah, somewhere, anywhere. I want to see her anywhere.
Yeah.
I want to see her in NXT. I want to see her on AEW. I want to see her WWE. Don't care. I want to see more of Thunder Rosa. So
yes.
And Camille's there, by the way. She's going to be there right behind her. So hopefully.
Just she looks like $1 million.
Yeah.
I've always said Camille looks like $1 million, but Camille looks like a wrestler.
Yeah.
Okay. She is the Charlotte Flair, like prototype blonde Amazon goddess wrestler. She will got to go far in this, Suggs.
Absolutely agree with you, man. Let's keep it trucking here because we got a lot to dive into in the Indy Talk section. It was a crazy weekend, man. Lots of things going on. But man, first and foremost, I want to point out, like, hey, I made it out to Southern Fried, as I pointed out earlier. Got to hang out with Larry. We chatted as the show went along. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. The first half, it was a struggle.
Even Larry said that.
Yeah. It was, we both sat there and kind of back and forth, and I was like, little things were going along the way, and I'm not going to beat guys up. I mean, hey, even the crowd it's like almost like my wife goes, maybe they just got to they're rusty. The crowd's rusty, got to get back into the groove. They've been off for a few months. Second half of the show, by the way, that was not the case at all.
Todd knows how to build a show.
Well, as Larry pointed out to me, if you're going to have a bad half, you want it to be the first. Not the second.
Yes.
The highlights clearly of the evening is, I do want to listen. It was Todd's booking. We're not going to hide it and not going to lie. Right? They built CT Keys in one night.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the weight, his physique and his look and his ability, it wasn't hard to do in the grand scheme of things.
Oh no, he looks like a wrestler.
But they did a phenomenal job. Literally earlier in the night, his earlier matches in the Gauntlet, he was getting a little bit of a reaction, but nothing like it was towards the end. Listen, I always say when you need heat at Southern Fried, you stroll Adrian Hawkins out there in the approve, and just now you've got Todd and Kelly with them.
Yeah,
you're gonna get the heat.
Man,
and boy, did they ever!
That is one of the places that I would dare to say he never could turn babyface. He's just too hated.
Yeah.
I mean, even without was Bobby with him? I didn't get to see the show.
Yep.
Okay. So that's his next most hated person there, because those people just go nuts. They lose their shit. Southern Fried is a unique animal. Of all it's one of the I usually can describe. You tell me a wrestling promotion that I've been to, I can describe the fans. Fans at Southern Fried are there for real wrestling. Okay, they're a crowd. They're similar to crowds I saw in Boutwell Auditorium in the
80s,
mid 80s, when my dad would take me. They're there for a wrestling show, and they're wrestling fans, and they get excited and they pop when the good guys come out. It's solid, and they go nuts on the heels. And Todd played all his heels right. He played all his baby faces right. This really puts Todd back in the mix.
Oh, absolutely.
He was number 2 last year for Book of the Year. Now he's on top, I think.
I mean, listen, right now everybody's chasing him after one show.
Yeah.
He's got it going because he did. When the babies come strong, and that's simple. The first one they started out, JBE, Joseph Brock, and then Jagged Edge come in that ring. Listen, youngsters, if you want to work on some old school promoing, listen to the Jagged Edge. And he just does an old school methodical promo to get his point across, and he did it.
He cut the first wrestling show we went to. He cut a phenomenal promo. Mm-hmm. The first indie wrestling show we went to after the start of the podcast was a Southern Fried show for charity in
it was in
Covington, and Jagged was there, and he just burned it down with a promo, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah. He did such a good job. He took that crowd, and I thought this was as loud as it gets, and Jacob Ashworth's return proved me wrong. They went even higher with a bigger pop when he made the return. And listen, it basically set the table. April 3rd's the next show. Just to clarify, like literally today while we're recording, they're not going to be at the Knoll Rec Center. They've actually moved. It's going to be at the Felker Gym, which is over at 725 South Madison Avenue. So it's going to be at the Felker Gym. So if
right
you're
next to the Boys and Girls Club.
Yes, so just keep that in
Boys
mind,
and Girls
folks.
Club.
It's going to be at the other place.
And how about Matt Hankins? Is there a place in Georgia wrestling he's not at right now?
Doesn't seem like it.
I can't think of one. Oh, maybe I can, but you know, he's at the good shows.
Yeah, anywhere that's anywhere, he's good. Yeah, exactly. So check them out. April the 3rd. IWU had a big show. Listen, one of the strengths that the IWE does is, first of all, is who they bring in.
Yes.
You know, they brought in people like O'Shea Edwards, EC3, Hammerstone, David Ali, Vari Morales, the Ducks, Danny Jordan obviously was there, AC Mack, Creed. Like I said, it's an all-star lineup. But one of the cool things we will give them credit for, and I know it was brought up somewhere else, is bringing Danny in was, you know, out of necessity, but I really like the way there's. Here's the thing, folks. You know, one of IWE's biggest knocks forever had been, oh, they just run super shows. There's no stories. They're just, you know, they just bring in the, you know, they fantasy book a card they want, and this is what they throw out there. Well, it looks like they're starting to kind of gonna start bringing some stories and running it, and that's the key, but folks, to being an indie, to me, anyway. To being a real indie promotion, you got to start some storylines and run angles.
Yeah.
You can't just every month or every 2 or 3 months, whatever, throw out just a super card and go like, hey, this is who we want to see wrestle. This is who you get.
Well, it still had a great draw, man. They're drawing 200-something people.
They were down a little bit, but they're going to listen. But at least they were honest. You know, look, they're going to be back May 22nd, so they're skipping April. They'll be back at the end of May. I keep saying, like, I want to go to that. I want to go to that. And literally was reaching out to people to try to go with me to this one. Listen, I can't go alone. I could, but whatever. But it's like almost 2.5, 3 hours to the show. And coming back that late, I got to have somebody in the car. I'm literally going to fall asleep.
And I'm at work.
Yeah, so.
Once again.
So check them out, May 22nd. They will be back. I do want to make sure we talk about Action. You know, I can't believe I missed Papa Angels at a show.
No, I'm sad about that.
Papa Angels, we know you listen.
We got to catch up with him.
Yeah, you got to get a hold of it. We're going to message you because I want to take you to, even if you're just going to a show with us, we just want to go to a show. We haven't seen him in forever, and I said that the other day. Like, there's certain friends of mine that we just miss at wrestling shows, and he's one of them that I'm like adamant. I gotta.
But his boy made it big.
Well, that doesn't mean, you know, we still like him.
He's a celebrity dad.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no Jeff Mooney, but, you know.
I mean, listen, same thing goes for O'Shea. He was at both shows, you know, the ones I missed. I want to catch up with O'Shea. But listen, let's get in and talk about Action. Look, in-ring actions, their strength. The crazy thing is, folks, they're starting the same thing. They're building stories. They're starting to get some angles, which they've had some, you know, here and there. But just, I think they can get into the mix if we can get out of where the limits are. I think that's what's holding a lot of things back is the crowd limits.
Yeah.
If we can get beyond that, I think because look, their next show is April 16th. It's their 3-year anniversary show. What I wouldn't give for their 3-year anniversary show not to have limits, right?
Yeah.
It's probably going to, but I would kill for it not to be, not to have limits, and they could pack a bunch of people in there and enjoy that show. But whatever. This week, though, we're going to hit the road. Lariato, March 26th. We're going to make the trip up to Rome.
Rome, Georgia.
Rome, Georgia. We're going to hit up and see. We just want to see. It's funny, too, because I looked over at Larry at the Southern Fried Show, and I said, hey, man, I'm going to the Rome show. He's like, so am I. We're both like, we want to see what's all the buzz about Lariato about. A friend of the show said, hey, dude, come up and check it out. I was like, absolutely, dude. There's, certain people, if they ask me to come, I go out of my way to make it. And then, Frankie's one of those people.
Frankie's on the show. Nigel's on the show. There's be more people that we know on that show. So it's kind of like a can't miss thing, and I'm excited about it. Looking forward to the show.
The whole Aces and Eights reunion. Like, here's my thing, dude. We talk about Lariato. Same thing we talked about a minute ago about running storylines. They've got to start running some storylines to be I'm not knocking them for bringing, hey, I would bring in the talents if I could, I could bring in if I had access to them as well. But drawing 400 or 500, but if you're just a super show, if you're an Impact Plus taping, let's be blunt, are you really an indie show?
Yeah. Well, who do you want to be? Do you want to still be an indie show?
No, I don't mean that. Listen, I don't mean that as a negative. Trust me, I don't mean that as a negative. I'm just saying, like, but if you're just going to run cards, but if they start putting stories together, drawing 4 and 500s, man, dude, hey, they're,
I'm looking forward to it. This is an animal I have not seen before.
Yeah. So
I'm looking forward to that. I bought us tickets to Superstar Fan Fest, so we're going to go to Rome twice.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was. Listen, Ron Fuller went on the poster, and you literally.
As soon as I saw Ron Fuller, I clicked and bought the tickets right away.
Yeah.
I'm like, shut up and take my money.
It's funny how there's certain guys of all things that will, that'll make you drop money, and Ron Fuller's one of them.
Yeah. As soon as I saw the picture, I bought the tickets, and I've been holding off on buying tickets. I heard there weren't very many left, but I've been holding off because, like, well, figure we'll go, or it's a long way away, a long time. As long as I saw Fuller, I'm like. Ron Fuller was so instrumental when we started this podcast. Ron Fuller is still my favorite podcast. And
cheap plug, by the way, if you're not listening to the Studcast, you should be.
He owned the company that got me started watching Wrestling Continental, Southeastern in Birmingham. I have the utmost respect for that man. He is somebody who made me a wrestling fan. Who put those matches on with Bullet Bob Armstrong, put those matches on with Lord Humongous. And if I'm hoping that's Jeff Van Camp under that mask, that's Humongous. So I can get the real Humongous and Ron Fuller, and Myron is take me back to the good old wrestling was so great back then, and I'm going to buy tickets to go to the show. Woo!
Yeah, so we're psyched, man. Heading up to the KLT Arena to see Lariato. Then we'll be back to Superstar Fan Fest for sure. Just tons of good wrestling going on in Georgia.
French fries, and I'm gonna need Diet Coke.
Yep, put your order in now, right?
Yes.
But hey, man, look, tons of more stuff. We'll be back on next week. But before we get out of here, we always like to remind you: subscribe anywhere, everywhere. Just, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Over on the book, you can subscribe to the page and watch the video there every week that comes out Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Of course, YouTube, if you're a video person, you can check us out on YouTube as well. Subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review anywhere and everywhere.
Have you been able to find a place we're not?
No. Not anymore. I mean, literally, I just don't. We're on Amazon. We're on Amazon Music. We're on. It's funny. I can walk in my living room. We've got one of those Alexas, with the Echoes. We got one of those little Echoes with the screen on it, and I can go. I'll say, Alexa, play the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network. Boom, and it comes up, and boom.
Okay, I gotta have that just for that ego pop, man.
It's pretty cool.
I'm still a mark for myself. I'll be honest. And knowing we have fans that pay for Patreon, knowing we have fans that wear and buy our shirts, I can't ever get over it. Get those shirts at Pro Wrestling Tees. I'd have mine on, but my girlfriend wore it the other day. She steals my shirts.
It happens, man. But hey, listen.
Proud to rep though.
Yeah, exactly. We, I had to, when we went to the Southern Fried the other night, the wife was like, "All right, which shirt do I get?" I'm like, "You tell me. I got a bunch of them I can wear. I'll wear the one you're not wearing," kind of thing. So she wore the old ESPN logo and the little font logo, and so. But anywho, lots of stuff going on. I'm looking for next week, see where what the road to WrestleMania looks like. Can't wait to get up to Rome this weekend.
Can't wait to tell you about Lariato, folks.
Yeah,
I can't wait to tell you about that.
Big stuff, obviously, and then just more to come. But hey, before we get out of here, Myron, you got anything else?
I have nothing else. Thank you, everyone.
Well, if you've got nothing and I've got nothing, what time is it, brother?
It's time to tap out.